Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Dragon. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our evening adoration to the Muses. And we gather with the sunset and cry out in loving adoration to the Great Mother, the Twins, and the Muses, the One, Duality, and Generation. And we ask the Muses to sing in us the songs of inspiration, to guide us in our daily wanderings, and to teach us to listen and perceive with reasoned clarity. Thank you all for joining me on such a lovely, lovely evening. I truly appreciate it. Now, let us light our candles and begin our rites. All right. Hail Hestia. Thank you guys once again for joining me. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And let's give a quick shout out here to our chat. Much love, Gandhi. Karanazan, much love. The Phoenix, much love. Christy, much love. Metal Chaos, much love. Kairos, much love. Coronazon, much love. The Phoenix, much love. Cat the Taurus, much love. Wild Speck, what much love. Crowbra, yeah, Crowbra, Crow Bro, much love. All right. Thank you guys. This is a beautiful, lovely, lovely evening. You know, originally I was supposed to be having a beautiful interview with the incredible Dr. Carla Ionescu. And I was going to be joined by my dear friend, Leslie Celine. And we had intended to discuss her incredible books. She has two books published on the goddess Artemis, She Who Hunts and She Who Endures. And I've been reading them both and really just loving them. I was so excited for it, but unfortunately there was a snowstorm where Carla's at, and she was stuck in traffic, delayed, and said she wasn't even going to make it home until 9 p.m. So right about now. So unfortunately we had to postpone, but she agreed to come on tomorrow. So we're gonna have our interview. It just will be tomorrow at 8 p.m. So hopefully the weather tomorrow is nicer and we don't get delayed, because I have so much to talk to her about. I was just completely blown away by these books. You know, a lot of the time when you get into academic literature, it can be extraordinarily dry, or they can be, you know, uninteresting, or they can be operating from a perspective of very limited view, you know. But Carla kind of avoids a lot of the traps that you find in a lot of academic literature. It's really just incredible, you know. She does a really good job between the two books of painting you a really deep picture of the goddess, and takes her to her, you know, her deepest roots that we have references for, you know. And it's truly astounding, and I'm really looking forward to diving deep. I don't want to give away any of my thoughts too soon, since we plan on having that incredible interview, right? And look, even here there's a bit of a storm, so hopefully my internet doesn't crump out here. I've been having trouble all day with my internet. Really bad internet this morning, bad internet now, so we'll see. We'll see how things go. All we can do is try, right? Okay, but let's begin today by discussing the astrology. We find ourselves under the moon in Aries. And the moon in Aries is heavy, wild energy, right? Passionate energy that calls you into action, that calls you to do something, to look at your life and take account and to move. Aries demands accountability. Aries forces you to change, right? When we look at this energy in the tarot, we see two forces, right, that Aries sort of rules over. We have the Tower, Mars, the force that comes to pull the rug out from under you, that knocks you off your feet, that catches you off guard, that forces you to innovate. And of course, we have the heavy energy of the Emperor, the one who builds the foundation, who manifests the vision, the authority that calls us into accountability and responsibility, that projects into the future, right? It's intense energy, this Aries, but it builds, it takes accountability. It is an empowering force of action, and it is necessary, right? So at this time, we have to empower ourselves in this energy, use it to our advantage, use it to get things done, to take account of where you are in life, to plan for the future, and to move forward, right? Powerful stuff. Okay, so now let's discuss the title here. Raise then the hymn to death. This beautiful line comes to us from William Cullen Bryant, from his poem Hymn to Death. And we're going to read a few poems by William Cullen Bryant here. So let me just pull that up for you. All right. This is a beautiful poem. You guys are going to appreciate this. There's a few good ones here. All right. The Hymn to Death, William Cullen Bryant. Oh, could I hope the wise and pure in heart might hear my song without a frown, nor deem my voice unworthy of the theme it tries, I would take up the hymn to death and say to the grim power, the world has slandered thee and mocked thee on thy dim and shadowy brow. They place an iron crown and call thee king of terrors and the spoiler of the world, deadly assassin that strikest down the fair, the loved, the good, the breathest of the on the lights of virtue set along the veil of life, and they go out in darkness. I am come, not with reproaches, not with cries and prayers such as have stormed thy stern and sensible ear from the beginning. I am come to speak thy praises. True it is that I have wept thy conquests, and may weep them yet again. And now from some my love will take a life, dear to me as my own. Yet while the spell is on my spirit, and I talk with thee, in sight of all thy trophies, face to face, meet is it that my voice should utter forth thy nobler triumphs. I will teach the world to thank thee. Who are thine accusers? Who? The living, they who never felt thy power and know thee not, the curses of the wretch whose crimes are ripe, his sufferings when thy hand is on him, and the hour he dreads is come, are writ among thy praises. But the good, does he whom thy kind hand dismissed to peace upbraid the gentle violence that took off his fetters and unbarred his prison cell? Raise then the hymn to death, deliverer. God hath anointed thee to free the oppressed and crush the oppressor. When the armed chief, the conqueror of nations, walks the world, and it is changed beneath his feet, and all its kingdoms melt into one mighty realm, thou, while his head is loftiest and his heart blasphemes, imagining his own right hand almighty, thou dost set thy sudden grasp upon him, and the links of that strong chain that bound mankind are crumbled. Thou dost break scepter and crown and beat his throne to dust. Then the earth shouts with gladness, and her tribes gather within their ancient bounds again. Else had the mighty of the olden time, Nimrod, Sessos, Sesostris, or the youth who feigned his birth from Libyan Ammon, smitten yet the nations with a rod of iron, and driven their chariot o'er our necks. Thou dost avenge in thy good time the wrongs of those who know no other friend, nor dost thou interpose only to lay the sufferer asleep, where he who made him wretched troubles not. His rest thou dost strike down his tyrant too. Oh, there is joy when hands that held the scourge drop lifeless, and the pitiless heart is cold. Thou too dost purge from earth its horrible and old idolatries. From the proud fanes, each to his grave, their priests go out, till none is left to teach their worship. Then the fires of sacrifice are chilled, and the green moss o'ercreeps their altars. The fallen images cumber the weedy courts, and for loud hymns chanted by kneeling multitudes, the wind shrieks in the solitary aisles. When he who gives his life to guilt and laughs at all the laws that God or man has made, and round hedges his seat with power, and shines in wealth, lifts up his atheist front to scoff at heaven, and celebrates his shame in open day, thou, in the pride of all his crimes, cuttest off the horrible example. Touched by thine, the extortioner's hard hand forgoes the gold run from the overworn poor, the perjurer, whose tongue was lithe even now, and voluble against his neighbor's life, and he who laughed and leaped for joy to see a spotless fame, blasted before his own foul calumnies, are smit with deadly silence. He who sold his conscience to preserve a worthless life, even while he hugs himself on his escape, trembles as doubly terrible at length. Thy steps o'ertake him, And there is no time for parley, nor will bribes unclench thy grasp. Oft too dost thou reform thy victim, long ere his last hour. And when the reveler, mad in the chase of pleasure, stretches on and strains each nerve and clears the path of life like wind, thou pointest him to the dreadful goal, and shakest thy hourglass in his reeling eye, and checkest him in mid-course. Thy skeleton hand shows to the faint of spirit the right path, and he is warned and fears to step aside. Thou settest between the ruffian and his crime thy ghastly countenance, and his slack hand drops the drawn knife. But oh, most fearfully dost thou show forth heaven's justice, when thy shafts drink up the ebbing spirit. Then the of heart then the heart of heart and violent of hand restores the treasures to the friendless wretch he wronged. Then from the writhing bosom thou dost pluck the guilty secret. Lips, for ages sealed, are faithless to the dreadful trust at length, and give it up. The felon's latest breath absolves the innocent man who bears his crime, the slanderer, the horror smitten, and in tears recalls the deadly obloquy he forged to work his brother's ruin. Thou dost make the penitent victim utter to the air the dark conspiracy that strikes at life and aims to whelm the laws ere yet the hour is come, and the dread sign of murder given. Thus, from the first time hast thou been found on virtue's side. The wicked, but for thee, had been too strong for the good. The great of earth had crushed the weak forever, schooled in guile for ages, while each passing year had brought its baneful lesson. They had filled the world with their abominations, while its tribes, trodden to earth, imbruted and despoiled, had knelt to them in worship. Sacrifice had smoked on many an altar. Temple roofs had echoed with the blasphemous prayer and hymn. But thou, the great reformer of the world, takest off the sons of violence and fraud in their green pupillage, their lore half learned, ere guilt had quit or run the simple heart. God gave them at their birth and blotted out his image. Thou dost mark them flushed with hope, as on the threshold of their vast designs, doubtful and loose they stand, and strikest them down. Alas, I little thought that the stern power whose fearful praise I sung would try me thus before the strain was ended. It must cease, for he is in his grave who taught my youth the art of verse, and in the bud of life offered me to the Muses. Oh, cut off untimely, when the reason in its strength ripened by years of toil and studious search, and watch of nature's silent lessons, taught thy hand to practice best the lenient art, to which thou gavest thy laborious days, and last thy life. And therefore, when the earth received thee, tears were in unyielding eyes, and on hard cheeks, and they who deemed thy skill delayed their death hour, shuddered and turned pale when thou wert gone. This faltering verse, which thou shalt not, as wont, o'erlook, is all I have to offer at thy grave. This, in the hope to copy thy example, and to leave a name of which the wretched shall not think, as of an enemy's, whom they forgive as all forgive the dead. Rest, therefore, thou whose early guidance trained my infant steps. Rest in the bosom of God till the brief sleep of death is over, and a happier life shall dawn to waken thine insensible dust. Now thou art not, and yet the men whose guilt has wearied heaven for vengeance, he who bears false witness, he who takes the orphan's bread and robs the widow, he who spreads abroad polluted hands of mockery of prayer, are left to cumber earth. Shuddering I look on what is written, yet I blot not out that desultory numbers. Let them stand, the record of an idle reverie. Wild stuff, wild stuff. Beautiful, right? Hail death, hail Thanatos, right? Death in its rewarding aspect that comes to take the tyrant away, that comes to bring the changing of the cycles, that leads to the ending of suffering. Wild. Beautiful stuff. Okay. And we continue. And the next poem we're going to read by William Cullen Bryant is called Hymn to the North Star. Hymn to the North Star. The sad and solemn night had yet her multitude of cheerful fires. The glorious host of light walk the dark hemisphere till she retires. All through her silent watches, gliding slow, her constellations come and climb the heavens and go. Day too hath many a star to grace his gorgeous reign, as bright as they. Through the blue fields afar, unseen they follow in his flaming way. Many a bright lingerer, as the eve grows dim, tells what a radiant troop arose and set with him. And thou dost see them rise, star of the pole, and thou dost see them set, alone in thy cold skies. Thou keepest thy old unmoving station yet, nor joinest the dances of that glittering train, nor dippest thy virgin orb in the blue western main. There, at morn's rosy birth, thou lookest meekly through the kindling air, and eve that round the earth chases the day beholds thee watching there. There noontide finds thee, and the hour that calls the shapes of polar flame to scale heaven's azure walls. Alike beneath thine eye, the deeds of darkness and of light are done. High towards the starlit sky, towns blaze, the smoke of battles blot the sun. The night storm on 1,000 hills is loud, and the strong wind of day mingles sea and cloud. On thy unaltering blaze, the half wrecked mariner, his compass lost, fixes his steady gaze, and steers undoubting to the friendly coast. And they who stray in perilous wastes by night are glad when thou dost shine to guide their footsteps right. And therefore, bards of old, sages, and hermits of the solemn wood, did in thy beams behold a beauteous type of that unchanging good, that bright eternal beacon, by whose ray the voyager of time should shape his heedful way. How beautiful. Hail the North Star. Wow. What a beautiful eternal beacon. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Amazing. And we continue. We continue. The next poem I'd like to read by William Cullen Bryant is called The New Moon. The New Moon. When, as the garish day is done, heaven burns with the descended sun, 'tis passing sweet to mark, amid the flush of crimson light, the new moon's modest bow grow bright, as earth and sky grow dark. Few are the hearts too cold to feel a thrill of gladness o'er them steal, when first the wandering eye sees faintly in the evening blaze that glimmering curve of tender rays just planted in the sky. The sight of that young crescent brings thoughts of all fair and youthful things, the hopes of early years, and childhood's purity and grace, and joys that like a rainbow chase the passing shower of tears. The captive yields him to the dream of freedom when that virgin beam comes out upon the air, and painfully the sick man tries to fix his dim and burning eyes on the soft promise there. Most welcome to the lover's sight glitters that pure emerging light, for prattling poets say that sweetest is the lover's walk, and tenderest is their murmured talk beneath its gentle ray. And there do graver men behold the type of errors loved of old, forsaken and forgiven, and thoughts and wishes not of earth, just opening in their early birth, like that new light in heaven. Wow. Hail, Celine. Beautiful. How glorious. All right. We're going to read one final poem by William Cullen Bryant, and then we're going to call it for our poetry and begin our divination proper. This is a really fun poem. It's called Thanatopsis. Thanatopsis. And this is actually a word that William Cullen Bryant himself created, right? And it means to view death, to contemplate death, to perceive death, to ponder death, but to ponder the good death, right? To ponder death in its access, in its aspect of relieving pain, right? Of restoring us to peace. For Thanatos is that beautiful, right, aspect of death. It's the good daimon of death, right? This is not death brought about by disease or war. This is death that comes as a relief at the end, right? Really interesting. So let's read this. Thanatopsis. All right. To him who in the love of nature holds communion with her visible forms, she speaks a various language for his gayer hours. She has a voice of gladness and a smile, an eloquence of beauty, and she glides into his darker musings with a mild and healing sympathy that steals away their sharpness ere he is aware. When thoughts of the last bitter hour come like a bright over thy spirit in sad images of the stern agony and shroud and pall and breathless darkness in the narrow house, make thee to shudder and grow sick at heart. Go forth under the open sky and list to nature's teachings, while from all around earth and her waters and the depths of air comes a still voice. Yet a few days and thee, the all beholding sun, shall see no more in all his course, nor yet in the cold ground where thy pale form was laid with many tears, nor in the embrace of ocean shall exist thy image. Earth that nursed thee shall claim thy growth to be resolved to earth again, and lost each human trace, surrendering up thine individual being, shalt go to mix forever with the elements, to be a brother to the insensible rock and to the sluggish clod, which the rude swain turns with his share and treads upon. The oak shall send his roots abroad and pierce thy mold. Yet not to thine eternal resting place shalt thou retire alone, nor couldst thou wish couch more magnificent. Thou shalt lie down with patriarchs of the infant world, with kings, the powerful of the earth, the wise, the good, fair forms and hoary seers of ages past. All in one mighty sepulchre, the hills, rock ribbed and ancient as the sun, the vales, stretching in pensive quietness between, the venerable woods, rivers that move in majesty, and the complaining brooks that make the meadows green, and poured round all old ocean's gray and melancholy waste are but the solemn decorations, all of the great tomb of man, the golden sun, the planets, all the infinite host of heaven are shining on the sad abodes of death. Through the still lapse of ages, all that tread the globe are but a handful to the tribes that slumber in its bosom. Take the wings of morning, and the Barcan deserts pierce, or lose thyself in the continuous woods where rolls the Oregon and hears no sound, save his own dashings. Yet the dead are there, in millions in those solitudes since first the flight of years began, have laid them down in their last sleep. The dead reign there alone. So shalt thou rest. And what if thou withdraw unheeded by the living, and no friend take note of thy departure? All that breath will share thy destiny. The gay will laugh when thou art gone. The solemn brood of care plod on, and each one of as before will chase his favorite phantom. Yet all these shall leave their mirth and their employments, and shall come and make their bed with thee. As the long train of ages glide away the sons of men, the youth in life's green spring, and he who goes in the full strength of years, matron and maid, and the sweet babe, and the gray-headed man, shall one by one be gathered to thy side by those who in their turn shall follow them. So live, that when thy summons come to join the innumerable caravan that moves to the mysterious realm, where each shall take his chamber in the silent halls of death, thou go not like the quarry slave at night, scourged to his dungeon, but sustained and soothed by an unfaltering trust. Approach thy grave like one who wraps the drapery of his couch about him and lies down to pleasant dreams. Wow. So amazing, right? Love it. Hail Thanatos. Hail William Cullen Bryant. What a beautiful poem. This is a new favorite of mine. Thanatopsis. Really great. All right. And with that, let us now begin our divination proper. All right. And we are going to hop over to our divination here. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. It boosts everything in the algorithm. And I would truly, truly love and appreciate it. And if anyone is interested in me pulling them a couple cards, please send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. Okay. And today we're going to begin with the Ganapati Oracle. And we invoke Ganapati Ganesh, the divine child, the Lord of beginnings, the guardian of the threshold, and the master of the spirits, the Ganas. And we ask Lord Ganapati to send us a message through the cards. Well, let's see. 36, healing. This is a card we often get, 36, the power of healing, the magic of the great mother, the 3 and the 6, the 3, right? Which is that great mother energy in the tarot that calls us into connection, that calls us into generation, into nurturing, into love, and into creation, that brings us into the 6, the lover's card, the perfected middle path, the alchemical wedding, commitment and transformation, empowered refinement through loving adoration. And that energy takes us into the 9, the power of the Muses, the magic of generation, the cycle at its absolute height, right? This is the power of healing, that magic of the great mother, the path of love and adoration, where we connect to each other, we embrace each other, we support each other. When we love life, when we come together in warm embrace, when we support each other, when we imagine a greater future, when we work towards that future, give ourselves for the next generations, that's how we heal. We have to come into that loving connection. We have to come into true flow and harmony. We have to embrace each other and support each other in connection and in generation, right? That's the power of the 3, 6, and the 9, right? Incredible, incredible power here, right? Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Amazing. I am not familiar. Oh, this is a beautiful comment. Snappy, I was inspired by your wonderful video on Amon to finally read The Count of Monte Cristo. Intuition told me to research its connection to tarot. Are you familiar with the Oracle to Berlin? I only in passing, that is not something I've ever really looked into. You'd have to tell me about it. That's really cool, though. You know, The Count of Monte Cristo is one of my favorite novels. You know, it was funny. That's actually a recommendation from Chewy, and it was, we read that book together as sort of like a book club a while back. She's such a brilliant, brilliant person. But reading that story, you cannot help but see the alchemical transformation on full display. You see what happens to Dantes. He dies He's born anew. He meets his master, and he's given his symbolic name. He becomes the Count of Monte Cristo, possessed by the spirit of justice and vengeance. And he goes out to get his justice and vengeance. And while reading this, it just, it's, I always, right? I am one who's engaged in the magic of, I follow that kind of hermetic magic. I'm engaged and into the word and into the literature and the story. That's how I perceive the world. So now that's how I perceive Ammon, is in that lens, as someone who's gone through that alchemical transformation, shed their name and become the symbol in order to enact vengeance, in order to shine a light and to bring truth, right? That was what the Count of Monte Cristo was for me. Really, 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 really powerful. But there's so much more there. There's so much more there. Alexandre Dumas. Dumas is a really magical, occulted figure, and there's so much in his books, and a lot that I shouldn't say because it's meant to be engaged. It's meant to be read. That's the fun, right? If I tell you, then you miss out on the discovery, right? If you engage in a book like the Club Dumas, what you'll immediately be confronted with is the biography of Dumas and the story of the Three Musketeers, which is another magical occulted story, right? The one and the many, right? We're all together, united. There's so much power in these stories, so much power in these stories. And what you need to realize, or what a lot of people, Alman, he's focused on a very specific type of performance that he's engaged in when he is doing Lady Babylon, right? And he is, engaged in a very specific willed, intentioned art. So you're not going to get a lot of these other sources that he'll give other, he, when he was working with me, he gave me the sources that would work for me. I'm struggling with the Greek. This is something, and I haven't also put in very much effort at all. I'm struggling with the Latin, and so Ammon gave me a lot of sources that were in English or were translated into English that he knew would be impactful for me. I'm also approaching this from a very different standpoint than many people, right? We immediately hit it off because we were both engaged in the same kind of magical tradition, though I was coming at it from a very, very, green position in comparison. But I recognized what was going on, and I was one of the early people, along with several others, of course, but who recognized the art and the intention and what was going on, and was engaging with him and asking questions. And really, really cool stuff. Ammon's an interesting character. He's an interesting character, but it's important to understand what that Lady Babylon is a theurgic performance, and it has a very specific intention. It's out to satirize, to destroy, to mock, to expose, to reveal, to desecrate that Christian image, and that's what his intention is. It's intense and focused. But when he was talking to me, he's talking to me as a friend, as someone who's engaged with the muse, so he's recommending me, all kinds of other stuff, right? I mean, he recommends to everyone always Lord Byron's Cane. That's a really good intro text, right? That's one of the big intro texts. The other big intro text that he used to recommend, he doesn't recommend it as much now, but Dea de Syria, or De Dea Syria by Lucian, right? Which talks about, the call to the Great Mother in Syria and the rites that they used to perform. And that text, what inspired me, right? Like the point too with all of these things is you have to engage it from this active reading. And I don't necessarily mean like, When I talk about active reading and empowered reading, it's about trusting your muse and trusting your heart and your intuition, and allowing yourself and your imagination to take you places, right? When I'm talking about seeing between the lines in the texts and recognizing that which is hidden, it's a lot of this is about personal gnosis. A lot of people balk at this kind of stuff, but personal gnosis is real. It's just personal, you know. And when it's personal, it's not really meant to be shared. It can be shared, but it doesn't really matter to anyone else but you. There's no way to verify it. There's no way to, you know, it's a personal experience, but that doesn't mean it can't be incredibly transformative, right? It's just it needs to be understood within these kind of contexts, right? When you're engaging in the text, there are many different ways that you can read a text. You can read a text with a very critical eye, or you can approach it from the mystical, right? You can approach it as an eidolon. The idea here, right, is like, okay, recognize that we are in a animist tradition, an imagist tradition. The image is paramount. The word is paramount, right? Everything is about the perception that this invokes, right? You're trying to dig in as deep as you can and experience that. This reading the text in the mystical way is no different than meditating upon the idol. It's the same exact process, right? It's the same exact process. And often it's aided by the same exact processes. If you went to these traditional temples, what would you be doing? You'd be lighting the incense, setting the mood, lighting the candles. Maybe you would be engaging in entheogenic use, right? All of this kind of stuff. You would be worshiping and engaging and treating this image as something sacred. You can do the same thing with the book. You can use the book as a way to connect to the spirits, to the daimons. You just remember that it also all happens within your head. A lot of this has to do with empowered imagination and embracing the madness. It's a fine line between embracing and being critical, and yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. This is something like, if people are interested in that stuff, Leslie and I have talked about this ad nauseum, because she is someone who, as a medium, has a lot more intimacy in this than I do, right? Giving oneself over to the divine. I give myself over to inspiration in the muse, but it's a bit different. All right, let's continue here. Hope you guys are enjoying the ramblings. Oh, chaos magic is fun. Chaos magic is fun, but chaos magic is an approach. It's a tool set, right? It's a tool set. It is a way in which you can empower yourself and in your actions, in which you can record your actions and figure out what your results are and figure out what works. The big thing about chaos magic that should be taken from it is that chaos magic can help you to create and refine your practices, and can help you to recognize what the real results are. If you can approach this with reason and honesty, then it gives you these scientific tools for which to approach the magical. I mean, a lot of their stuff gets caught up into some things, servitor creation and sigil magic and these limited things. But I think ultimately, a lot of that stuff is a great gateway, a great entry point, And there's a lot of learning to be gained there, Sigil magic is really, 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 really beautiful and super easy and a lot of fun. If you just go onto YouTube and search Grant Morrison DisinfoCon, you'll find one of the best lectures ever on sigil magic, and it gives you everything you need to know. Right? Yeah. But yeah, chaos magic is right. It's all about. It's very very results based. It's very results based. And there's a place and time for that kind of stuff. But personally, I'm on the aesthetic path, the bhakti path, loving adoration, right? It's not about results. It's not about results for me. That's not to say that there's not something to be gained in that kind of approach. Of course there is, right? It's very helpful, especially if you're out to achieve something, you know. But I don't want people to get too caught up in these kind of results things because it's very easy to fall into trappings of greed, right? That's not the, most chaos magicians that I've met are not in that trap. But if you're so caught up in your results, if you're so caught up in this very self-fulfilling kind of stuff, to me, I've always been interested in the more theurgical magic, being inspired and connected to the divine, right? They talk about this in the tradition, and it's a bit snobbish, but you get the high and low magic, and low magic is folk magic, and it's will magic, sex magic sometimes, though sex magic can be higher too. But right, low magic is something you got to be careful with. A lot of those kind of things, you know they bind you up into things, and you got to make sure, like, do you know what you want? Do you know what you're asking for, what you're attracting to yourself, right? It gets all kind of wild. Um yeah anyway, I think personally the best kind of magic that you can do is to do the magic of trying to come into inner knowledge, right? It all begins for me in the inner world, right? You want to develop, that ability to go into the self and to create the inner temple, right? um, the inner city where you can really feel secure and you can really empower yourself in that active imagination where you can perceive inside your mind's eye, right? Your mental palace, right? This is kind of what I always recommend people to do. Engage in that kind of stuff, right? And if you practice that kind of silent meditation, if you sit in the self and you learn to become intimate with yourself and your inner voice, right? Which often is not a voice at all, right? This is something that we just tell ourselves. But listen to that voice, connect to that voice, right? See the pictures, see the feelings in which, the communication is far more subtle and interesting the deeper you go, right? But that's where you find her, is in the darkness and in the silence, you know? When you learn to listen to yourself, when you learn to be in that deep meditative state, right? That's, in my opinion, the best magic you can do. Silent personal meditation and just this openness and a willingness to hear, right? Trusting yourself. Exactly, D Love. All right. Let's go now to the Fairy Guardian Oracle. The Fairy Guardian Oracle. And we invoke the spirits, the fairies, the daimones, the manes, the lares, the genii, the seleni, the satyrs, the dryads, the naiads, the ories, the nymphes, the nereids, the kurids, the corybantes, the elves, and the gnomes. All the spirits of mind, the spirits of place. Oh, we got a card shooting out here. And look, healing energy. So much healing energy today. Double healing energy. Now is the time for you to give or receive healing. Everyone has a natural ability to heal others. Yes, even you. Wow, healing energy, right? When we are connected in loving harmony and flow, when we can embrace each other, when we can be in that true loving reciprocity. I give fully and receive fully, right? We're empowered in our connection. We flow like the waters, right? Incredible love, incredible, beautiful energy here. Amazing, you know? Feel that healing flow. Feel that beautiful connection. Wow. All right. What a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful little message. And let us continue. Let us continue. All right. We're going to go now to the angel guardian oracle. The angel guardian oracle. And let us invoke the guardian spirits, the angels, the angelos, and ask them to inspire us, to guide us throughout our days, and to protect us throughout our way. What is the message? Angelo spirits. Let's see. Inspire. Holy love. Holy love. Wow. Divine imitation. Bacchus in adoration of Venus. Seeing that beauty of Eros and of Aphrodite inherent in all things, right? The holy love. Aphrodite Urania, moving beyond the earth, lifting the veil, rising to the heights of the ideal, right? That passionate love that carries you across the abyss and into the heights of beauty. This is the magic of the high priestess in the tarot. Incredible, incredible energy, right? Incredible love. And this is also such healing energy. We go through the cycles. We strive in that eros of distance in order to connect to her, right? We are separated, but not. We can feel her and recognize that love everywhere, in the light of our children's eyes, in the light of our partner's eyes, in the beauty of the growing grass, right? In the rising of the sun, in the beauty of the moon. There's so much incredible life around us, right? You can even see it in the rot and in the decay if you engage in this magic, right? If you truly empower yourself through that connection to the divine, right? Holy love transforms everything and makes it beautiful, makes you see that great mother, makes you see life in its ever expanding, ever growing immortality. You know, death is but a moment, and then we are born anew. Life is always inherent everywhere. Beautiful stuff. Holy love. How wonderful. All right. Thank you, guardian spirits. What a beautiful message. What a beautiful little message. And let's continue. Okay. Where do we wish to go next? We're going to go to the Earth Spirit Oracle. The Earth Spirit Oracle. And we invoke the spirits of the earth and ask them to inspire us and to send us a wonderful magical message through the cards. So what is the enlightening message, Earth Spirits? Inspire. Let's see. Spontaneous. And look at that. We have the wolf mother, right? Beautiful witch under the light of the moon with the howling wolf. Artemis energy, Hecate energy, right? Aka Laurentia, Agiria energy. Diana Nemorensis. Beautiful stuff here. Spontaneity, right? Taking that leap, trusting yourself and your passions, embracing that magic of creation, embracing that energy. You know, when I think of this force, that force, you know, the wolf mother, I think of that energy that stands up to power, that speaks truth to power, right? That accepts the consequences and goes forward anyway, right? Wants that virtue and is willing to suffer for it. Wants that love and protection and will suffer for it. Powerful energy, right? Be spontaneous. Be empowered in your will and your determination. Speak truth to power. You know, take that leap. Amazing. All right. Thank you so much, Earth Spirits. And we continue. We continue. All right. Let's see where we're going next. Okay. Up next, we're going to go to the Egyptian gods oracle. The Egyptian gods oracles. And let us invoke the Egyptian gods. The gods of Egypt, the gods of the Nile, the Neteru. And we ask them to inspire us, to guide us throughout our days, to send us a message through the cards. So, what is the inspiring message, Netaru? Let's take a look. Okay, we have Geb 5, prosperity. Prosperity, right? That's incredible energy, incredible energy. And Geb is the god of the earth, fertility, and the underworld, right? Beneath the sky, Nuit, Newt, you know? And that's incredible energy here. Incredible energy. Wow, Geb. And the 5, right? What is the 5 about? The 5 is that force that calls us to strive up into the heights of the ideal, right? It's the magic of Venus that calls us to exceed ourselves, to struggle, to strive, to reach up and to draw down the moon, to empower ourselves in our will, to wield the elemental powers and to cross the threshold. This energy of Geb, right? This is deeply related to Dionysus, to the child to come, to the dying and rising god, to Adonis, right? Adonis, one who strives to ascend to the stars, to reach up and to imitate that great mother, to come in to that loving, beautiful connection, right? And they do this through that empowered transformation, through that growth, right? The light trapped in the earth rises into the beauty of the plants and reaches for the glory of the stars, you know? And so this energy calls us into that. It calls us into that transformation, to go through the cycles, to embrace life and creation, and to continue to strive for that greater loving adoration. This energy immediately makes me feel the previous card, the holy love, you know? Really, really beautiful stuff here. Beautiful. You know, and Geb promises prosperity, growth and abundance of the earth. When you embrace life and creation and generation, you are rewarded, but you have to struggle for it. You have to strive for it. You have to be in that energy of the 5, struggling to become yourself, to know yourself, to reach for that perfected path, right? Beautiful. Okay. All right. And with that, let us now begin our tarot proper. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. It boosts everything in the algorithm, and I would truly, truly love and appreciate it. And once again, if anyone is interested in me pulling them a couple cards, please send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. All right. And today we're going to begin with a 9-card Saturn square reading. And we're going to go to the Moon Compass Tarot. And remember, for these 9-card Saturn square community readings, to take what resonates, to discard what doesn't, and to trust your own personal intuition above all else. And let us invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon us, to guide us throughout our days, and to help us to realize the beauty of our dreams. So, Apollo and the Muses, what is the inspiring and empowering message from the Moon Compass Tarot? Let's take a look. Muses inspire. The Empress, the Earth Mother, Demeter, Aphrodite, Pandemos, the most empowered and creative energy in the deck, right? This is all women, the empowered feminine. This energy is all about coming into connection, coming into creation, embracing life, love, and generation. This is the force that makes love to all and gives birth to all, the most empowered creative energy in the deck. And when we see this card, we are called to embrace that energy, the feminine, the creative, and to nurture life, to embrace life, right? Where do we go from here? The Knight of Pentacles. Interesting. The Knight of Pentacles is beautiful. This is one of the more mature, empowered knights of the court, right? Well, they're struggling. Out of all the knight cards, right? The knights, the princes, they represent youthful energy. People who find themselves caught up in the heights of their imagination. And this is necessary, transitory energy, youthful energy, but ultimately they need to move past this, come down from the air and come into love, right? And the thing with the Knight of Discs, this is someone who is divided along that polar split, right? They have all these grandiose ideas, all this incredible imagination, and they have all this skill and craftsmanship, ability and willingness to work. And yet they find themselves unable to commit to anything, to see any idea through, to work on a project and really focus upon it. Every time they begin, they find themselves called to another idea. They find themselves caught up in anxiety and doubt and in frustration. Is this what I'm meant to do? Is this really where I'm meant to be? Is this a good idea? There's an infinite number of reasons to doubt, you know? And so often this Knight is in that stagnant energy. And the answer is for the Knight to commit to something. They need to get out of their imagination and put themselves to work, embrace life. And look at this. They're being called to connect to that divine feminine, to embrace the creative, to embrace loving generation and connection, right? Coming down from the air and into the earth. Really, really, really beautiful here. So let's see where this is going. The Two of Swords, peace. Peace, right? The peace is beautiful. It's the beginning of true communication and understanding, right? No longer are we fighting and lashing out with our sword, but now we are at peace. We are willing to see the other side. We have put our sword aside. We can now accept the other perspective. We can take things into account. We can listen and be okay, right? And that's profound energy and connected to that great mother, right? There's a need for us to embrace life, to embrace that creative energy, right? The muse is calling us to empower ourselves in this feminine energy, to get out of this divided energy of the prince where we're caught up in our air, and to come into that true earth, into that true creative power, right? Remember, the great mother is the one who gives birth to all, who manifests all, who brings all together in ever greater community. So that's what we're called to do, to be in that creative energy, right? Let's see. Oh, look at that. Now, this is interesting. I'm getting the sense here we have the King of Cups, right? The King of Cups is the fire of water, the mature masculine who's now out to find community, to fight for love, right? The classical king, the classical one who goes to rescue the princess, you know? Beautiful, mature, passionate energy, the one who will sacrifice themselves for community, for the people they love. Really passionate, steamy, magical energy, mature energy, right? And I have this profound sense what we're seeing here is when this knight, this prince, can embrace that divine feminine, be at peace with the divine feminine, embrace creativity, generation, and connection. They transform. They cease to be a prince and they become a profound king. They come down from the air and embrace the waters, right? And they find themselves in that passionate connection in the waters. Let's see where we're going. Yeah, look at that. What is the root of all this? What is this transformation truly about? The prince is going through that cycle in the air. We have the Ace of Swords, the root of the element of air. And when the ace is here, it signifies, you know, that inspiring spark, something that's calling us into new knowledge, into insight, into a greater perspective, that's allowing us to see things more clearly. You know, if the prince really follows this energy, where does it lead them? It leads them to the king. This is real self-discovery and knowledge. They're getting out of the air through exploring the air, right? Coming into true, profound personal understanding, breaking free of fear, and learning to transform, to grow out of this immature energy and to become this mature king. Through that connection to the mother, through that willingness to gain and to grow, new perspective, new understanding, you know? Wow. And through that general energy of peace, right? When we're at peace and we accept this connection and we accept that path of new understanding, all of this becomes really simple, you know? Let's see here. The Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords. Oh, interesting. Oh, interesting. The Knight of Swords, we got two knights here now, right? We have our knight in the middle card, the energy that we were originally showing up in. And now we have the Knight of Swords, right? The Knight of Swords connected to that king. I still have the sense that we're evolving into this king because of the placement. But there's a need for us also to reconcile with this other youthful energy, to be at peace with this energy and to learn to be in that great mother energy with this energy. The Prince of Swords, the Knight of Swords, represents, you know, the youth who finds themselves completely disconnected, caught up in the heights of their imagination, but also in the air to the point where they're now lashing out at everything. They're in this deep, cruel, isolating energy. They fail to meet their their ideals. They fail to meet their understanding, and so they hate themselves. The universe and the people in it fail to meet their understanding and their wishes, and so they hate it. They hate everyone. And they're in this deeply angry, frustrated energy. And it's because they're so caught up in their own wishes and their own dreams and their own perspective. And they refuse to engage with the rest of the world. But what we're seeing here is that we're being called into that mothering energy, that nurturing energy. Often, it's difficult as it is. These kids are often jerks, right? They're jerks. But, the only way you're going to deal with a jerk, a real jerk, is with a big hug. They need mommy. They need mommy, right? That's what they need. They need that loving support. They need someone to ground them in something real, to get them out of this resentment energy and to bring them back into community and connection. And what I'm seeing here is that this knight is learning to understand that. If they really want to be this king, the one who fights for community, who loves community, who can help this prince, then there have to be in that queen energy. We're seeing two really beautiful energies that are approaching this prince, the neediest of all the princes, right? The one who really needs that peace to get out of that isolating mode and come into community and love, right? And the great mother is the center. She is the key to all this, right? Let's continue. The Eight of Wands, the Eight of Wands, look at that. A profound opportunity is on the way that's going to lead to this transformation, that's going to help us to come into that great mother energy and mature and become that king who can help that youth see things in a new light, see things in their own new light, right? In order to get there, though, we're going to have to trust our heart, look for the signs and the synchronicities, and when we see them, leap, right? This is the magic of Hermes, the swiftness. This is energy that comes to offer us a lifeline, to break us out of bad habits and repeating cycles, and to bring us into profound new opportunity. But for that opportunity to happen, you must take the leap. You must see the signs and trust your heart. And that requires you to be open and to be willing. But there's profound magical opportunity here if you will allow it, if you will take that action. And look, we have the Four of Swords. Where is that perspective leading us? It's leading us into the Four of Swords, truths, repose, wisdom, right? This is really, really beautiful. Expanding upon that too, coming into that foundational energy of the four. And in the air, right, this is about the gaining. The first, the two is the beginning of the conversation, learning to see outside of yourself, learning to recognize the other, their wants, their needs. By the time you come to the four, now you're in collaboration. Now you're in conversation. Now you have gained a greater perspective, one that is beyond yourself, right? Now you can really work in community and see things with a greater clarity that was denied before, right? Because now you're working through and with the perspective of others. And this is really, really, really beautiful. Really beautiful. See, we're seeing that prince really grow up, really come into greater understanding, and helping this knight do the same, come into greater understanding. right? The foundational energy of the four is really, really beautiful. This is what the princes need in order to get out of that prince energy and become a mature king every time, right? They need that foundational core sense, that greater perspective that can allow them to break free of that kind of youthful, not narcissism, because it's that childlike ego, right? And it is kind of narcissistic, but you're also a child, so but you need to grow out of that, right? We'll give you grace because you're youth, but eventually you've got to get out of that egoic mode and come into harmony with the rest of the humanity, with the rest of nature, with the rest of the world. And that's what we're seeing here. That's what we're seeing here. These princes learning to come into greater perspective, move beyond their limited selves. All right. Three of Pentacles. Yeah, collaboration work. This is interesting, right? 2, 3 is that great mother energy. That great mother energy. Ultimately, this is about what we're seeing is this prince grow up and become a king who can help the youth and work with the youth, come into this collaborative energy, learn to build and to grow, learn to come atop that foundational energy and to continue to grow into greater heights. That's what it's all about, right? That great mother is calling us into connection, into community, into creativity. This is where she really wants us to be. And to get there, we got to be that mature knight and we got to take responsibility, right? We become that King of Cups who will help that youth. And that's the work that we're doing. That's the work that we're doing. But it's beautiful and it's profound. Coming into collaboration, gaining greater perspective, right? This is wonderful. This is wonderful. Great mother stuff. If you're going to embrace that great mother energy, if you're really going to help nurture, this is where you're called. Stop being a youth. Start being the king, the one who can really help the youth. Help the youth by helping them gain a greater perspective, come into greater understanding, learn to collaborate and work in the earth for themselves. This is a really mature reading about becoming responsible and growing up, finding purpose, right? Embracing life and creativity. Getting out of that air prince energy, Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, that's the message. I hope that resonated with you. It certainly resonated with me. And thank you so much to the Moon Compass Tarot. How fun. And once again, if anyone would like me to pull them a few cards, please send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. Okay. Let's see here. We're now going to go to the Egyptian Tarot of Thelema by Oliver St. John. Okay. And once again, we will do a 9-card Saturn square reading. And let us invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon us, to guide us throughout our days, and to help us to realize the beauty of our dreams. So Apollo and the Muses, what is the message from the Egyptian Tarot of Thelema? All right, let's take a look. Muses inspire. Okay, our center card and defining image is Set 15, the devil. Wild energy, right? Set, the one who destroys Osiris. Incredible energy here, right? The devil is Capricorn. The 15, that energy that takes us to the 6, the perfected middle path, the one who holds the keys to the heights, to the crown of initiation, right? In order to gain the magic of truth and wisdom, you have to pass through this energy. And this is also the full moon, the great shaman, the great adversary. When you face the devil, you face yourself and all your weaknesses, and he forces you to overcome them, to best him, right? You have to outwit him in order to overcome this energy. And it exists in multiple forms and multiple ways, right? But before you can pass by this devil, you must be in that pursuit of truth and love and virtue. Anything less, and he sends you on a profound journey, right? Let's see where we're going. Oh, look at that. Man. We're getting the heaviest of heavy shit today. Okay. Kansu, the 18. So we have the light of the full moon, and now we have the new moon, the 18, right? And this energy is beautiful, but it is heavy, 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 right? When the 18 is here, this is about recognizing that we are caught up in a repeating cycle, right? Anytime you see the eights, and the 18 is the eight infinite, it's on a transcendent level now, right? So this is the eight energy is that binding energy. We're doing the same thing and expecting different results. And with the moon, this is the great mother coming to help us confront this energy. You know, we are stuck in this repetitive cycle, but we don't fully know what it's about. We keep sabotaging ourselves, preventing ourselves, limiting ourselves, being in fear and anxiety, and it's confusing. And what the moon is telling us is that there's something deep within, something in our unconscious, in our subconscious, in the depths of our body. When this energy is here, it tells us that this is something that the ego can't fully process, right? Often this is ego shattering things, trauma experienced in childhood, right? The deepest of fears. It could be something that is even familial, right? That's coming from that family cycle. This isn't just your trauma, this is your family line's trauma. But if the moon is here, the goddess is coming to help you face this. She wants to help you go to the depths of yourself and confront what this is, to confront what this is. And there's some really powerful, powerful stuff here. If you can confront this energy, the 18 transforms into the 9. And the 9 is the hermit, the Virgo, the energy that calls us into the path of refinement, that calls us to the heights, that allows us to exceed and overcome ourselves, right? We face our fears and change course. We break out of that 8 through disciplined, mature action and for facing ourselves in that Virgo energy, right? With truth and honesty and a willingness to change. So, this is really, really powerful stuff. There's a grand opportunity here. And there's also a heavy realization. Everyone wants to beat the devil. Everyone wants truth, love, right? And wisdom. But in order to beat the devil is telling you, look, 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 you don't even recognize it. You couldn't face me if you wanted to. If you faced me, I'd send you back in a profound journey so fast you wouldn't even know what hit you. You've got shit internally you got to deal with, things you won't even admit to yourself. You can't face the devil until you can deal with that internal stuff, right? You got to be able to recognize these things and take account. It's heavy, but it's needed. It's needed because again, with the 18, it tells me that this trauma is calling you to act out in ways you don't fully understand. And it's causing you to self sabotage, to keep repeating the same things, to bind yourself in stagnation. Oh, wow, guys. Man, this is as heavy as you're going to get. This is just about as heavy as possible. The 10 of Swords, but it's also revelatory and empowering, right? Because the 10 of Swords is the breaking free of fear, the recognizing of our own overthinking, of our own perspective as being destructive. The 10 of Swords is completing the cycle in the air, breaking free of the 9 of Swords cruelty by gaining a greater perspective through facing ourselves in the mirror and shining our light into the depths of our soul. This is also really, really powerful stuff because, right, in both of these energies, the devil is kind of required. Why? The devil is the mirror. And in order to break free of either of these, you have to face yourself and apply reason and wisdom to yourself, right? What the devil is telling us is that we're in this deep traumatic mode. Some of it is conscious, some of it is unconscious, but the issue is always and predominantly here one of the air. one of the air, one of our perspective. We are caught up in fear. We are binding ourselves, right? The 10 is this energy of fear. When you look at your life and you look at your perspective, what you see is someone who's in victimization energy, right? We see someone who is thinking the world is out to get them, that everything is terrible, that their life is so much worse than it is, right? They're in this real frustrated, angry energy, in this deep, deep pain. And that pain leads to lashing out in anger, right? The 10, though, is waking up and recognizing this. We're stepping out and we're facing yourself and looking at ourselves in the mirror. And we see the violence and the decrepitude. We see the lies. We see the reason for it, right? Like often you don't just come to this place of anger and resentment for no reason. But never is that reasoning justified, right? We have to, and no one wants to hear this, but we have to face reality as it is, right? We have to try and face our issues as they are, deal with what's in front of us. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult, but you know what will make it infinitely worse? If you overthink it and you turn this into something worse, right? Often this is what we see. People get hit, they get hurt, life throws them a curveball, they get the shit dumped on them. And then what do? Now the universe is out to kill me. The universe is out to get me. Everyone is out to get me. Everything is garbage, right? And it's like, you had a bad day. Yes. But is everything garbage? Is everything out to get you? Are you certain about this? And what we're seeing with the 10 is we're getting out of that irrational aspect, right? We're not allowing ourselves to fall into the futility and the frustration. We're breaking out of that. We're looking in the mirror and going, oh shit. Yeah, I did go through it. Yeah, it was tough, but you know what made it so much worse? Believing that I was the victim, right? Making my situation and my story so much worse than it needed to be. So much about magic is about the stories we tell, right? But ultimately, this is beautiful, because the 10 allows you to go back to the root of the element of one, of the element of the air, right? To the one. We're no longer in that fear. We can gain a new perspective. We can approach this with a deeper understanding, right? And that's beautiful. Let's see. Oh, and this is great. This is just a true kind of energy here. Look, in order to face that devil, we're going to have to do the hard work. We're going to have to do the hard work, and it's going to take us breaking free of all this fear. And this is just true. Often the energy that takes you out of these fearful modes, out of these depressive cycles, is coming into collaborative work with others. When you're working with others for a purpose, when you're doing something active, having to focus, taking yourself away from your mind, no longer being in the heights of imagination, but instead working with others in shared purpose, and then seeing the fruits of that action, all of a sudden life starts to become a lot more beautiful. Also, you're collaborating, you're doing something, all the energy is saying, right? If you want to face the devil, look, get out of the fear, get out of this depressive limiting cycle where you're binding yourself out, and come into work, collaborate with others, and work towards that purpose of being your best self, of overcoming your limits. Wow. Yeah. Look at that. Hrumachus, the emperor. The emperor, right? The 4. Yeah. Ultimately, what does the devil want you to do? What do we need to do to break out of that moon energy? What is the work leading us towards? Look, it's all about constructing the foundation and being the mature authority in your own life. When the emperor is here, that's what they demand. You got to step up. You've got to take charge. You've got to be that visionary who creates the future, who tells their story, who takes charge of their life. Where are you going? What are you doing? What are you building? Right? You're in this collaborative energy now, but now what is it about? Right? You want to build. Hmm? Oh, wait, is it the 5? No, this is the 4. Yeah, it's the 4. Harumakis is the 4. Okay. But yeah, you know, so this energy is all about, right, taking charge, building, overcoming. We want to get into this collaborative energy where we can be the visionary that unites these people in work for the purpose of building the foundation, of taking that 3 and creating the 4, the power, that center that guides us and empowers us, right? Really, really right. Really powerful. No worries. This deck, Gandhi, is a little confusing sometimes. So it's all good. And we have the 3 of Cups, abundance. Yeah, look at that. Look at this. Ultimately, what we're seeing is we need to become the emperor and come into collaborative connection, loving flow. Get out of the air, get out of our depressive, repetitive, binding ways, patterns, and come into collaboration. It's this energy and this mature energy that's going to allow us to face the devil. You know, the emperor is the visionary, the one who unites us in the work, who calls us to build the city, to protect the children, to empower ourselves and to secure ourselves through the changing of the cycles, right? Really heavy, powerful stuff here. Let's see. Oh, the Princess of Wands. Look at that. Where's all of this collaboration going, right? Where's the devil leading us to? The Princess of Wands is wild, right? The princesses are the cards that take us back to the heights of the ideal, right? They sit upon the thrones of Malkuth and they bring the aces to completion. They represent new life and new generation. Sometimes these are children, sometimes these are profound ideas. Always there's something that has a life of their own that must be nurtured, must be cared for, and allowed to blossom. And the Princess and the Wands, this is that energy that comes to inspire action, to upset the old growth, to burn down what no longer serves, what is no longer just, and to bring in change, real empowered action that calls people to do something radical, to uplift themselves, right? This is passionate, fiery energy, really wild energy, and it comes after we can break free out of our mind, overcome our inner issues and come into collaboration and be that mature builder, right? That mature leader. Once we can do this and face the devil, then we come into this energy, right? That beautiful child, that inspired idea that can truly transform the earth. Yeah, and look at that, the 4 of completion. The 4 of completion. We find ourselves in this energy when we are creating and working towards and uplifting this, right? The 4 of Wands is that stable energy, that core energy in the flames, in the fire, in our desires. This is the beginning of knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel, the highest muse. This is understanding our core center of self, who we are and what we want. We know who we wish to be. We know and feel and recognize where we're going in life, right? This is that foundational desire that stays with us, that we continuously work towards throughout our life, And this is such beautiful energy. And it's connected to this child, right? And it's through this engagement that we come into this sense of purpose. We come into this true sense of self, right? Yeah, and look at that. We have the 4 of Cups, luxury. Not only are we finding our purpose, but this is our family. The 4 of Cups, right, is that foundational energy in the water, those core relationships that stay with you through the changing of the cycles, right? Whatever family means to you, but those people who are with you and there for you, that that comfort you, that uplift you and empower you. Really, really, really beautiful, right? When we can be that emperor, come into this collaboration energy, break free of our own self-doubt and face ourselves in the mirror, overcome our limits, what do? We give birth to new life and we manifest the family in our core sense of self, right? We find our purpose and we find our loved ones, right? The fire and the water together are true love. And in the four, right, that's real empowered energy here, right? And with that child, infinite potential, infinite growth, so much magic. Wow. This is a really beautiful read, guys. Really beautiful read. We have to break free of such depths of trauma and depression. We have to face ourselves and get out of bad patterns of fear and anxiety, of victimization. Come into collaboration and into community connection. But when we can do that, then we will give birth to new life, create empowered ideas, transform the earth, find our purpose in our family, right? Now that's beautiful. What a magical read. All right. That's the message. Peace and love. I hope that resonated with you. It certainly resonated with me. And thank you so much, Oliver St. John and the Egyptian Tarot of Thelema. All right. And once again, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does help out. It boosts everything. It would truly make a big difference. It's just 1 second of your time. And I would really, really love it. And if anyone is interested in me pulling them a few cards, please send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership, right? Okay. Let's see here. Which deck do we wish to go to next? We will continue with our community readings here. And we're going to go to the Midnight Magic Mushroom Tarot. The Midnight Magic Mushroom Tarot. A lot of fun, this tarot. All right. And this, of course, will be a 9-card Saturn Square reading. Oh, we got a donation from Steve McQueen. Hey, Steve, do you want the Midnight Magic Mushroom Tarot? I think you do. All right. Thank you for your support, my dear, dear friend. And let's pull you a few cards since we got you right here, just when we were about to start a long form read. Okay. All right. Apollo and the Muses, shine your light upon Steve. Guide them throughout their day and help them to realize the beauty of their dreams. So Apollo and the Muses, what is the inspiring and empowering message for my dear friend Steve? Let's take a look. All right. Muses inspire. What is today's message? Okay, we got the Queen of Wands. The Queen of Wands, the water of fire, right? The water of fire, that beautiful, passionate person, the one who puts herself out there, whose life is her art, right? Who inspires others, who challenges the status quo, who is her beautiful, unique self and uses it to make the world come into connection with her, right? Really passionate, steamy energy. Helen of Troy, right? Incredible artists like Frida Kahlo, people who challenge our very concepts of the beautiful, but incredible, incredible energy. Let's see here. The Eight of Pentacles, swiftness, the magic of Hermes, right? There's an opportunity here for you to connect to that red queen, for you to connect to that beautiful artist. But in order for you to connect to her, you have to recognize the sign and the synchronicity. You have to trust your heart and take the leap, right? Hermes comes to offer you a lifeline to get you out of this pattern. But in order for that, oh, is it? Oh my God, you're right. It is Pentacles. Sorry. Thank you, Gandhi. Thank you, Gandhi. Okay, it is a bit late for me, but hey, life is beautiful. Okay, Eight of Pentacles is prudence. Sorry, Steve, prudence. Wow. So, okay. This changes up everything. Let's just see what the last card is here. Yeah, this changes up everything. Okay. All right. I have the sense here, Steve, that you're actually showing up in this energy as the Queen of Wands. This is you. This is you, right? You are being called to be your best, beautiful, unique self. You know, the Queen of Wands is the one who has the audacity to put her ideas out there, who challenges the status quo, who is her bright and beautiful self, right? And what I'm seeing here is if you keep doing the work, if you keep striving to be yourself, if you keep striving and working hard and doing what you need to do to overcome your limits, ever in that energy of refinement, then you will come into that loving community and connection that you desire, right? The 10 of Cups is satisfaction, the completion of the cycle in the water, true love and fulfillment, right? Fulfillment in every sense of the word, having friendships, partners, lovers, collaborators, right? Everything you could want and more. And this energy calls you into charity, right? To give love back, to be in that connection with people, always giving, always sharing. Really, 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 really beautiful energy here, you know. But you're called, right? Be your beautiful self. Make your life your art, right? And do the hard work of becoming your best self. And you will find yourself finding the love, the friendship, and the family that you need. That's the message. All right. Thank you much. Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate you. Truly means the world. All right. Beautiful. And if anyone else would like me to pull them a few cards, excuse me, please send me a super chat, a super thanks, or sign up for a YouTube membership. Okay. And let's continue here. Let's continue. We're going to go to the Thoth Tarot by Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley. And we invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon us, to guide us throughout our day, and to help us to realize the beauty of our dreams. So Apollo and the Muses, what is the empowering and inspiring message from the Thoth Tarot? And this is going to be a 9-card Saturn square read. So take, discard what does not, and trust your own intuition above all. All right, and let's see here. Muses inspire. All right, our center card and defining image is the Two of Discs change. Oof. Two of Discs is one of the heaviest cards in the whole deck, right? Because this is the nature of reality. Everything dances, nothing stands still. And in the face of the two, you have two options, adapt or maintain, but you're always struggling. If you're not struggling, this energy is going to steamroll you. It's going to pull you kicking and screaming, right? The change is here regardless of what you want. And when this energy is here, we're called to try and harmonize with it, to be like the bicycle. If you can be in that perpetual forward motion, then this energy is sustainable, right? This is no longer rocky, and we can be at balance. See where we're going. Oh, look at that. We have the windbag, Dionysus, right? Dionysus, the primordial air, and the carnival king, the divine mad one. When we see that energy, we are called to embrace childlike audacity, to take the leap into the unknown, to pursue our desire with the full intensity of our being, without care, without worry, right? Be your best, beautiful, unique self. Live that wildness. Don't care what anyone thinks. Just pursue this, you know, and this energy is calling you into change. Adapt, overcome, grow. Take that leap. Do it, right? The key here is all about your desire, right? The Seven of Wands valor is calling you into greater focus, right? This energy is taking us out of the Six of Wands victory, knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel, that perfected middle path that finds us fulfilled and in flow, right? But now we're distracted, overwhelmed. When the 7 is here, there's all of this opportunity, good, bad, and everything in between. And so, in the need of such intensity, there's a need to just stay true to ourselves, follow your heart, be in that fool, just keep going, just keep throwing. You know who you are, you know what you want, go for it, change and overcome. Embrace this path. Don't allow yourself to fall to other ideas. Stay true to yourself and where you're going. And look at that. When we can learn to accept and embrace change, right? When we can take that leap and really pursue our desires, stay true to our highest passions, it takes us into the 10 of Cups: satisfaction, satiety, true love, and fulfillment, right? Beautiful. Completion of the cycle in the waters, having all the love that we could hope for, being truly fulfilled emotionally, right? And giving back, being in that true charity energy. That's really glorious. But in order to get there, we have to embrace the change. We have to be willing to change. And willing to pursue our desires means to let our past self go, means to move out of the patterns of bad behavior, to do something different. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, look at that. Now, this is incredible, right? Part of the magic of the magus is that the magus is returned back to source and can embrace this energy of the fool. They can have that audacity. They can don the crown and call themselves a king. They can play in the story, right? And the magus is beautiful, right? They're the one who empowers himself in their will, who strives for that true balance in order to manifest their will upon reality. They've gone through the cycles. They've bested the devil, risen to the heights of the ideal, and now they're empowered. They can tell their story and they can shape reality, right? And look, what we're seeing here is, in order to really come into that true fulfillment, we have to just have the audacity to tell our story. We have to embrace our desires and call out for them. You know, the magus is the one who sets the plan in motion, who engages in that visionary practice, right? So much of the story is in how we perceive reality, how we look at the universe, the stories we tell ourselves internally and externally. We have to take control of these elements and utilize them to overcome the change, right? To shape the change, and to lead us into this. We just have to stay focused, right? Wow. The Ace of Discs, an opportunity in the earth, something that's going to take us into profound growth, right? When we can accept the change, we can accept new profound opportunities, opportunities born of our will and of our magical creation that can lead us to profound fulfillment, right? The ace always implies the 9 and the 10, but it must be cultivated. We have to see that energy through. We have to really empower ourselves. How can this opportunity lead us to the 9 of discs? Gain, power. How can this opportunity bring us to accomplishment, right? Wealth, the 10. What are we building? Where are we going? What is this about? What is needed, right? That magus is the one who's going to tell this story, right? And we can't be distracted and caught up in other people's energies. Oh, look at that. We're showing up here as the Knight of Swords, the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is beautiful, right? This is the mature. The Knight of Swords and the Thoth Tarot are the kings, right? So this is the air of, or the fire of air. The mature person who's out to come into wisdom. They want to be understood and they want to understand, right? They're empowered in that pursuit of the air, want greater communication, greater understanding. They relish the debate. They relish the struggle for wisdom, the reading, the trying to explain their ideas, enthused and empowered in that energy, you know, but they're being called into the earth, that which is difficult for them, that is out of their normal purview, right? Into all this building, right? And it's leading to profound growth and transformation. But this is a change for them and something that's a bit difficult. And the muse is saying, trust this, right? Look, this is the polar flip here, right? What we're seeing is that this is someone who's been caught up in the heights, right? Pursuing that mystical pursuit with passion, which is the correct way to pursue the air, right? We're not looking for answers. We're not looking for ourself. We're pursuing wisdom for the sake of wisdom. We're engaged in that communication for the sake of communication. That's why the night is beautiful, right? He relishes the air, but he's not bound up in the air, you know? But what we're seeing is that energy has run its course, right? It's done for this night. He now needs to change, right? He takes that passionate fire and that air energy and he channels it through this energy of the windbag, the primordial air, the fool, right? But the fool also represents the other three elements, right? Because it is the nothing that gives birth to something. Out of the infinity of chaos comes the primordial elements, the fire, the water, and the air that coalesce into the earth. So that he has that spark of desire. He has all of that other energy. So this fool is telling that night to reconnoiter themselves, to transform themselves, to come into that passion that'll bring them into the earth, right? To get down from the heights of the air and to change it up, to be in that fiery, passionate energy right now, and to come into the waters, to come into the earth and into the water and into the fire. Where are we going here? And look, we've been seeing this as a theme tonight, you know? We now have the Emperor again, the four, right? Aries. And this is wild energy, right? The empowered masculine, the one who builds the foundation, who calls us to be the visionary, to take charge of our life and to become the authority, right? What better energy to take this to its bitter end, to come into wealth and accomplishment than the Emperor? And look, when we embrace that magus energy, when we tell our story, we find ourselves becoming the authority in our own life. So much about the energy of the Emperor is just about the tale you tell yourself. The only difference between this knight and the Emperor is the crown that he wears and the willingness to accept the responsibility and to do the heavy work, right? The Emperor takes charge. The Emperor has a vision. The Emperor is responsible and unites people. But that energy doesn't come from anywhere other than the stories he tells himself, right? We get those magical, ridiculous stories like, oh, the king was empowered by the nymph of the lake, and that's why he's king, right? We see this story told in so many different ways, from King Numa to King Arthur, right? But ultimately, it's up to the king. It's up to the king to become the emperor. You have to make that transition yourself. You have to don that crown. You have to take charge and authority, face the change head on, and build something for yourself. And that's really what this is about. This is about the knight building something for themselves, telling their own story, being that visionary, right? And this will lead them into true community, into true growth. But look, this is heavy though. This is not so easy for the prince, or sorry, for the knight. You know, the Knight of Swords is really struggling with the Emperor. And this is something that we honestly see all the time, right? Because the Emperor, for every loving father who builds the foundation, there is that tyrant who holds you to the foundation, right? And the Emperor energy is complicated like that, you know? Yes, it's that authority that allows us to build and create, but that authority, once it's invested with power, does not want to relinquish it. It wants to expand it. It wants to force a perspective, right? And there's a lot of negativity and frustration and fear about this energy. We're seeing the knight really struggle with it. Really struggle with it. You know, but ultimately, what are we seeing? The knight needs to recognize their passions, needs to recognize where the muse is calling them. They're going to have to break free of this. They're going to have to come into the earth. They're going to have to face the change. You know, this knight is finding themselves caught in a corner, and they're recognizing the absurdity of the air here. They may not even realize that they're in this cruelty energy yet, you know, but it's what's preventing them from becoming the magus, and it's what's preventing them from becoming the emperor. is their own fear. It's their own victimization, isolation, right? And so the knight needs to change this. Luckily, right? To change this 9, it's not as difficult as it first appears. We're already at the end. There is no worse from here. What we can do, what we need to do in order to come into the 10 is take a step outside of ourselves, right? Pause and breathe and look in the mirror. Now, with the 9, you have all of this incredible imagination, all of this reason, all of this thought. You wouldn't get here without it. Now, take that magic and apply it to you. Look in the mirror and face yourself with love and honesty. If this energy is here, it is because what? You are lashing out at the world. You are in that victim mode where nothing is good enough. I am not good enough. The people are not good enough. Nothing will ever be good enough. And everything is coming for me. Everything wants a piece. If I don't attack first, I will be destroyed. But all of that is crazy energy. It's insane energy. The universe is not out to get you. No one is going to hit you. You don't need to strike first. Calm the F down. Look at your situation and what you're really having to deal with. You know, this is completely irrational. And it needs to be faced. It needs to be faced. And ultimately, you know, this is something we see too. Every person in their life has to reconcile the Empress and the Emperor both have a shadow side to them, right? They represent the totality of the masculine and the feminine. And you have to confront the dark sides of each of these poles. Otherwise, you cannot fully be yourself. To know the self is to confront this image. You have to use this power in your own life. We all do. There's no avoiding this. This night, as much as they are resisting this, as much as they flip and hate this energy, they're going to have to don that crown. If they want to be the magus, if they want to grow and come into the love that they need, they're going to have to don that crown and take charge. It's just how it is. Just how it is. You have to be the emperor at this time. And there will come a time when you'll have to let that emperor energy go. And there'll be a time when you'll have to be the empress and then let that energy go, right? These are how the cycles work. But there's no running from this responsibility. Oof. This is a heavy read, guys. But there's a lot of power here. There's a lot of power here. If you can become that visionary authority in your own life, adapt to the change and build, break free of fear and tell your story, you can come into the grand love and fulfillment that you seek. That's the message. All right. All the love in the world to you. Thank you, guys. I hope you appreciate that wonderful, wonderful reading. All right. We've got a couple more donations. Thank you, guys. Really, really appreciate the loving support. So up next, we've got a beautiful donation from the incredible Gandhi. Thank you so much, Gandhi, for your loving support. Let's see here. Which deck do I want to go to for Gandhi? Do I have that deck nearby? No. Where did I put that deck? I don't know. Anyway, okay. In that case, let's see. Gandhi, we're going to go to, let's see here. The Kabbalistic Tarot. The Kabbalistic Tarot. I'm feeling this tarot for some reason. It was jumping out at me. So this should be good. All right. And we invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon Gandhi, to guide him throughout his day and to help him to realize the beauty of his dreams. So what is the message, Muses, for Gandhi? Let's see. The Ten of Wands. The Ten of Wands, the breaking of chains, the completion of the cycle and the fire. Now that is heavy energy to have in your center, right? This is coming into true self-discovery, true self-acceptance, and true self-love, right? No longer are we caught up in nonsense, but we are facing ourselves and accepting ourselves in the moment, in our body, in our time, in our place, right? This is hard energy to be in, but when you can be in it, it is blissful, right? And this is the energy you need to be in, and if you truly wish to grow, because the only way we can truly change is if we can accept the place we're in, So this is a really powerful card read so far. Let's see. Whoa, the nine of discs gain. Okay. The nine of discs, right? Power in the earth, the most powerful of all of the minor arcana, right? This energy is the abundance in fruitivity, in the fruitivity, in this is the abundance of the earth at its most fruitive, right? And this is incredible energy, heavy energy. When we see this energy, you have to use it. It has to be put into play, right? This can be incredibly rewarding, but if you hold on to it, it can destroy you. Oh, wow, look at that. The Eight of Wands. Okay. There's an opportunity for real growth here, for real expansive growth. There could be money on the way. There could be a change in job on the way. But whatever it is something that's going to lead you to true empowerment and ultimately the self-discovery, right? Because once you have that energy of the nine of discs, now you can do things. Now you can wield things, right? That's a heavy energy to bear. But again, with the Eight of Wands, you have to be able to recognize it. You have to see that opportunity and leap for it, right? But this is really, really beautiful, Gandhi. Ultimately, I'm seeing something truly, truly positive here. If you can trust the signs and the synchronicities, you can come into true growth, growth that will lead to profound self-discovery and acceptance, you know? That's a powerful opportunity, right? And the power energy, remember, right? This is complicated. It's not just wealth. This is empowerment. And the earth represents all of the elements combined, So this nine in gain, this is a real gain. This is a real power. It can easily be wealth because wealth does give you power. But think about this in terms of your own life. Often people get frustrated because they assume this is coming as a rainfall of money. But often it comes in multiple ways. But it's always incredibly rewarding and demands responsibility. I've seen this energy many times come up as a promotion, you know? So think about it. But this is powerful stuff, powerful stuff, right? Seize the opportunities, trust your intuition, look for the signs, and accept and love yourself. Be your best self, right? There's a lot of power here, ultimately. Very cool, Gandhi. All right, all the love in the world to you, my dear friend. All right, we continue. Okay, up next, we've got a donation from the beautiful Cat. Thank you so much, Cat the Taurus. I truly appreciate you, my dear, dear friend. Okay, and let's see, what's next? Which tarot? Mermaid, that's right, Mermaid Tarot. All right, thank you, Cat. And let us invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon Cat the Taurus, to guide her throughout her day and to help her to realize the beauty of her dreams. So Apollo and the Muses, what is the message for Cat the Taurus from the Mermaid Tarot? Let's take a look. Muses inspire. We have the Five of Discs, Pentacles, worry. Five of Discs is worry. Heavy energy, the worry. It's intense, okay? On one hand, you find yourself struggling and uncertain in the earth. But it's not that extreme uncertainty, right? Because you're in the five, so you have a foundation. You've built something. But there is that struggle to be recognized. There's that struggle to be secure and to be safe. You do not feel safe. You do not feel secure. You want more wealth. You want more recognition. You want more security, right? And you're in that energy of striving to get into it. Let's see. Oh, and look at that, the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Wands, the Water of Fire. So you're showing up as that Queen of Wands energy, right? The Queen of Wands is beautiful. She is the one whose art is her life, right? She's empowered in her uniqueness, and she strives to challenge people to be themselves, to reflect upon that kind of profound radical uniqueness, you know? It's really, really incredible, inspiring, beautiful energy, the Queen of Wands. When we see that, we're called to rise to that occasion, to that energy, to live your best life, to be yourself, to see yourself as inspiring, you know? Where are we going? The Seven of Pentacles. So you're juggling between two energies here. On one hand, there's this energy of wanting to come in and wanting more, right? We're struggling for that success. But then there's also on the other side, failure, right? Being overwhelmed in our success, having too much work to do, and you're finding yourself juggling between these, almost in that middle path. What you want is the middle path, right? The six, where you're in that success, you're recognized for the work you do, and you feel good about it, but you're also secure in the earth and don't have to worry, right? You got the wealth that you need to protect yourself, right? You're on the cusp of this. You're dancing between these two things, either striving for more or overwhelmed with too much. Ultimately, what the muse is saying here is the key is for you to be yourself, to be the artist, to empower yourself in the creative aspects of your life, and the queen is the one who has that passionate connection through other people, right? She wants to connect to other people, to inspire other people, so there's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of beauty here, and you're juggling in the earth. You're juggling in the earth between struggling with too much success and struggling with not enough. Right? So you're almost there, though, in the middle path. You're almost there. Can you find that place where you are recognized and empowered, where you're not overwhelmed, but you are achieving? That's what you need to be trying to figure out. And it's something to do with this energy. There's something intrinsic about you that will help you get there. This is a good place to be. Ultimately, this is a good place to be. Yeah, it's not in that middle path, but you're far from fallen. You're far from fallen. You're far from falling. So that's the message. Keep struggling in the earth. You'll find that place where you'll be secure and recognized. Just keep being yourself. That's the message. All the love in the world. All right. And up next, we have another wonderful donation. Thank you so much, my dear friend Christy, for your loving support. Truly, truly appreciate you. And let's pull you a couple cards. And let's go to the Rider-Waite Tarot, the most classic and famous of all tarot decks, by Pamela Coleman Smith and A.E. Waite. And let us invoke Apollo and the Muses and ask them to shine their light upon Christy, to guide her throughout her day and to help her to realize the beauty of her dreams. So Apollo and the Muses, what is the empowering and inspiring message for Christy? Let's take a look. Muses inspire. What's the message? All right, we have the Five of Discs. Oh man, Christy, you're dealing with similar energy to the wonderful cat here. Five of Discs, right? It's not that you're completely insecure, right? You do have the foundation, but you are struggling to come into success. You are struggling to be recognized for the work that you do and to feel secure. You recognize that you're not out in the cold, but things aren't as secure as you need them to be, right? You need and you want more empowerment, wealth, security, recognition, right? That middle path is what that represents. We're recognized for our work and rewarded, and we are secure. We have the wealth that we need to be safe and to protect the ones we love. Yeah. And look at this. This is the energy you're in. You're struggling to come into success. And this is beautiful energy in this way because the chariot is what? The chariot is the seven, and it's Cancer. It's the magic of Hephaestus, Apollo as the destroyer, right? This energy calls you to stand up and fight for what you love, right? It comes after that lover's card, the profound commitment. If you're committed to love, then now you have to be willing to sacrifice for it, to do what you need to do to protect it. You know, I often think of this energy as the mother fighting for her children, you know, who's willing to do anything for that energy. And ultimately, that's what the chariot is about. You have to take responsibility and be willing to act and do what is necessary to be in that sacrificial energy, right? It's heavy, responsible energy, but it's also the most powerful energy, right? Nothing messes with that Cancer, you know, when it's fighting for its loved ones. So let's see. And look at that, the Ace of Cups, the Ace of Cups. Interesting. You know, the Ace of Cups is about new opportunities for relationships, new love, new friendship, new connection. There's something interesting here. When you are willing to pursue that love, you know, one of the things about this energy of the chariot, you're fighting for what you love. To fight for what you love is also to put yourself out there to get love, right? The chariot energy is calling you to be in that. You know, if you're finding yourself not having the friends, not having the connections, not having the partnerships that you want and you need, then you've got to go for it. You've got to run the risk and put yourself out there in more ways than one, because the ace, right? This is the root of the waters. It's not just about a lover or lovers. This is about connection in more ways than one, right? Real friendship, most of all. And that's what this is about. And what I'm getting the sense of is when you can empower yourself in that energy and put yourself into this, striving to find those connections, to come into community, that's what's going to bring you into the success that you need. That's where you're at this moment. You know, you've done enough in the earth at this moment. You're, you know, in spite of the five not being successful, it is safe, right? It is secure. And what I'm getting the sense from the muse right now is you need to be in this energy pursuing love. Don't dedicate all your time to work. Often the success that we need, in order to get the success, right? In order to be in that success, you need loving support, you need friends, you need opportunity, you need community. And that's where you're at. That's where you need to be focused on, right? Go out and fight for what you love. And that means, in this instance, getting the friends and the connections you need. And I know that's not easy, but half of the battle is recognizing what the battle is. Once you understand, okay, I got to put myself out there, you start telling yourself that story, right? That's so much of magic is the stories we tell, right? So you tell yourself, I need to find people. I need to find connection where I'm at, right? In more ways than one. How do I do that? And then when those opportunities present themselves, you'll go for it. This ace says those opportunities are around the corner, right? And this chariot says you have the passion to get you there. You know, you just got to do it. So there's a lot of growth, a lot of potential. You just have to embrace love and fight for it, right? That's the message, Christy. All the love in the world to you. I hope that helps, my dear friend. You will find the security you seek when you come into greater friendship and community, you know? You're welcome, my dear friend. I'm glad that resonated with you. All the love in the world. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we're coming up here to 2 hours in a little bit. And I do need to get up bright and early for tarot in the morning. So I think we're going to wind down here. So we're going to do one final sortes, and then we're going to call it an evening. So let's take a look. I think we're going to go to Euripides, 10 plays. Muses, what is the message from Euripides? Inspire. Then came the miracle. I saw the stranger seize the topmost branches of a soaring fir and force it down, down, down to the black earth till it was arched like a bow, or like an arc described by the pagan string in drawing the circumference of a rounded wheel. So the stranger tugged at that mountain branch with his hands and bent it down to earth. It was no mortal deed he wrought. When he had set Pentheus on the branch of the fir, he slipped his hands along the trunk, letting it straighten again, but gently for the fear the mount should throw the rider. Aloft into the lofty air rose the sturdy fear, with my master sitting on top. And now he saw the maidens, not so well as they saw him. They had scarcely spied him on his lofty seat when the stranger disappeared from sight, and a voice out of the sky, I guessed it was Dionysus, cried aloud, young women, I bring the man who has cast ridicule upon you and upon me and upon our holy rites. Take vengeance on him. No, that is a wild image, right? The stranger, Xenoth, takes Pentheus. And what does he do? He takes this giant fir tree and he pulls it down to the ground. And he takes Pentheus and he sticks him on the tip. And then he slowly lets it up. And then Pentheus finds himself sticking high up on top of the branch. Then all of a sudden, the Xenos is gone, and we hear the voice of Dionysus crying out to the Maenads and saying, this is the guy who shames us. Get him. Whoa, what a wild image. What a wild image, right? Justice being singled out, forcing to face that other, right? No longer empowered, isolated and alone, sitting on a branch. Be careful who you attack, right? The message in the Bacchae, right, from which this passage is, or at least one of the more profound messages, one of many, of course, is to love and respect the stranger, to love and respect the other, the foreigner, the immigrant, the people who are different from you, right? To not shame and attack them, to not misunderstand and mock them, right? Their ways may be different, but that doesn't mean that they don't hold power, that they're not important to them, right? And you have no right to speak. You have no right to shame and attack and destroy, right? And if you do, you may find yourself one time in a different position where you're the foreigner, where you're the other, and you're caught in the middle. And now what are they going to do, right? This is a tale, a message as old as time, you know. We see this in all of the grand religions. It's loving of the neighbor, loving of the other. Bacchus, Dionysus, is the every person, is the every man, right? And we have to learn to love and respect everyone, because you never know who the divine actually is. And if you can't treat people with loving respect, doesn't mean you have to, you know, be their best friend. Doesn't mean you have to accept everything, right? Like, this is the thing. They're not telling you you have to go out and join the Maenads. In fact, the Maenads don't even want you there. They don't even want you to participate in the rites. They want to be okay to do their own thing. They just want the freedom to be themselves and to have their own space. That's it. Just let them go do their thing in private. Respect their privacy. Respect their religion. Respect their difference. And go about your own way. Oh wow, what a wild thing. But you know what, this is a wild concept for many people, right? How can we accept that which is different from us? Oh no, but it's not just. Oh no, it's not pure. Oh no, it's not right. But who are you to bloody judge? Things are complicated. Worry about your own stuff. Worry about your own life, your own politics, your own religion. you know Otherwise, you may find yourself one day surrounded by the people you othered as the real other in that moment. All right, everyone. That's the message. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this beautiful adoration to the muses and tarot readings. And thank you, everyone who sent me their donations. I really, really appreciate it. It truly means the world. And with that, let's now end with our prayer. And we cry out in loving adoration to the Great Mother, the twins, and the muses, the one, duality, and generation. And we ask the muses to sing in us the songs of inspiration, to guide us in our daily wanderings, and to teach us to listen and perceive with reasoned clarity. Thank you all so much. Peace and love, and take care. Hail Hestia.